Perfect. So today's date is November 11th, 2022, and there are 0 new cases of COVID-19 in the Charlotte area. So starting off, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm David D. Dawson.
Where are you from?
Born and raised on the south side of Chicago and currently in Charlotte, North Carolina.
How did you find yourself coming to Charlotte?
I always say long story short. My oldest sister went to Johnson C. Smith in the early to mid 80s, and as a little kid, I just fell in love with Charlotte. It was different than Chicago, the streets of Chicago. And when I came back in 1988, summer of 1988, I just made the decision I want to come back and live. It didn't happen for my high school years, but I was able to come back for my college years and attended and graduated from Winston-Salem State University.
So you said when did you move to Charlotte then? What year did you?
The exact year I actually moved to Charlotte was probably 1990, I want to say 1998-ish,
Okay.
something like that, 1998.
So how did you get from Winston-Salem State to Queens?
That's a longer story.
Okay, rephrase the question. What attracted you to working at Queens then?
To be honest with you, I had gotten, my original pathway was through a mentor of mine who suggested me to teach a communications class. And that was right up my alley. Previously working in public relations, it was the sports PR class. So he suggested me, and that was my first entryway to working at Queens. In the role that I'm in now, I had another mentor, actually from the university, had encouraged me to apply for the sport management position here as I was working in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools as a sport marketing teacher. So I applied, interviewed, and in my second year.
Do you enjoy teaching?
Love teaching.
Why?
That's a good question. I enjoy seeing the sometimes instant light bulb, as most people would say, of students grasping a theory or a concept and applying it. And it just so happens that I always believe that it's been the purpose that God has given me to do now in this part of my life. And there's a big difference between purpose and assignment. So my purpose, I believe, is to educate based off of my experiences working in the sport management and communications industries. But my assignments may change. So it keeps pushing me every day to fulfill that purpose, to enlighten, to students, and just the way my professors and teachers did for me.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like the pandemic made that harder for you when we went online?
A little. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was still teaching high school.
Okay.
And it was challenging. It was very challenging, especially the first few weeks in I think it was mid-March of 2020, when everything halted and you saw the digital divide, those who had Wi-Fi and the Chromebooks and stuff like that. You saw the difficulty and the challenges of that. Personally, it was fun for me as a teacher because I was a little bit more relaxed. The stress of the job was a little bit, it was not there for me. But, it was also, painful to see what students may be going through and things like that.
What do you remember of those early days?
Just confusion, not knowing how to do or what to do a little bit at first. We had to transition everything onto the educational platform Canvas, which I had a little bit of training and working knowledge of, but it was a big transition. The biggest thing too was that everything for us was if a student turned in something or they halfway did it, you can only go but give them, you couldn't really fail them. You couldn't really fail the kids. And that was a big adjustment for myself and some colleagues.
Do you feel like when you're teaching, you get close to your students, or?
Oh, yes.
So, you mentioned earlier that you felt like you weren't really able to be there for your students in terms of when they were going through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that affected you personally, like not being able to teach the way you wanted to?
It was a little restraining.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm very theatrical or dramatic when I teach. But at the same time, being in the communications area, I kind of just use that Zoom, because I did about 15 to 20 minutes worth of lecturing, really, especially those early days. I just use it as my time to, hey, this is the David D. Dawson show. Welcome to the show. We're going to have some fun while learning. And, I just kind of reverted back to my childhood watching Mr. Rogers or something like that, where let me entertain and educate at the same time. I wished, one of the biggest things I wished was that more students had turned on their cameras. But at the same token, you have to empathize. They may not have been in a place where you wanted to see that background. Where, they could have been living in a hotel or something like that. It was hard. So that was the challenging part.
Do you feel like the theatrical side of teaching came with you after the pandemic ended? Do you think that it's something you kept?
Oh, that's just me. That's just me. I should have wrote down, I'm a thespian as well. I love to act, so I love to entertain at the same time.
I got you. So going to something different, how do you feel like your friendships and family relationships changed during the pandemic?
Family and friendship dynamics was interesting during that time. I was going through a divorce, so you can imagine family structure or family dynamics as being shaken. My friends, and I was also going through alcoholism. So my friends, my closest friends that I spent a lot of time with or I've known over the years were extremely supportive and extremely helpful during a very, very difficult time. So not only are we going through a pandemic, I'm getting a divorce and I'm going through, and I'm being treated for alcoholism. So it was tough, but it was, and weird all at the same time.
Is that your first time dealing with alcoholism or being treated for it?
It was my first time for myself to face it, accept it, and to find the solution for it. Yes.
And do you think it was a coincidence it took place during the pandemic, or the pandemic made you face those things?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was a combination of everything, but definitely the pandemic slowed things down to recognize that of those issues, and recognize that there's some things that need to be addressed that would not have been addressed had things just been the way it had always been before the pandemic.
I got you. And then how long were you and your wife married for?
At that point, 5 years total. 5 years.
Gotcha. Did the pandemic cause strain on that relationship as well to get divorced, or was that just?
No, I don't. I'm sure it did. There were some parts to it that, of course, had done. But it was already there prior to the pandemic. So there were some things that it put more strain, more stress, and then sometimes some things because of being the fact that things paused, and life just kind of just paused a little bit as far as the everyday normal life paused. It allowed things to slow down and to take a breath and take a good look at things.
With the pandemic as well, like you said, your friends were a large supporter for you.
Mm-hmm.
How did the pandemic affect those relationships?
For some, it just made us closer a little bit, I think, because some friends, we never stopped seeing each other during the pandemic. We did the distancing, and but we kept going, Jack. It was really interesting. Like we did the social distancing, the 6 feet and spread around and everything like that. But I think that kind of helped us and made us closer. Mm-hmm. Some people who I hadn't seen in a while, we were able to reconnect. Or the people that you probably don't talk, but they're still your closest friends from the past or something like that. That allowed us to kind of reconnect, I guess, in some instances.
Do all of your friends live in the Charlotte area, or were there some outside of it?
College friends outside, except for maybe one or two college friends. Everybody else we're here in Charlotte or in the Charlotte area. Yes.
I got you. Let's see. Okay. What are some long-lasting consequences you think of the pandemic for yourself, or just in general?
Long term.
Like, just let's go with lessons. What have you learned from the pandemic?
Man, I learned a lot. Some of the lessons I learned. I will say, I guess what you asked me about gaining. I learned a lot about myself that I didn't know, or things that had been affecting me in the past was still affecting me in my present. And I learned how to get that out.
Do you have an example?
Yeah, well, let's say, I'll give you one example where I was able to learn how to kind of deal with a hurt or a past situation. A lot of teachers in this country, and definitely in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, we were, I don't know, man, we were kind of dragged through the mud from politicians and everything about all different kinds of stuff. I remember one local politician called teachers thugs because they were standing up for more pay. And that just, it ate at me. And I never let it go. And I had to learn the lesson during the pandemic of how to let that type of anger and that type of hurt, how to let it go, how to process of letting go. For me, I learned to pray a certain way to help me get that out, because that stuck with me for a long time. And I didn't realize what that was doing to me internally. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I learned how to do. So doing a lot of self-reflection and how to really get to the solutions to a lot of stuff. And again, that kind of goes back to it, because we couldn't do anything, couldn't go anywhere pretty much, it slowed that process down where you can actually think about stuff and do the reflections instead of go. Mm-hmm. So.
I got you. On your hand as well, you mentioned like religion a lot and just like God. Is that a big part of your life?
Yes.
Do you think the pandemic made that like closer? Do you feel like you felt closer to God after that?
Yes. you know, you have you have a situation, or you may have a situation, an issue that kind of comes to head where you have to. It just meets it. I would say where God met me in this situation. It says you have nowhere else to go, but to whoever you may have as a entity or such. For me, again, God. So I had nowhere else to go, and because of that, it allowed me to reconnect where I was disconnected, and that was instrumental. That was extremely key.
Do you mind telling me the situation that you were in with that?
I couldn't tell you the situation, but I could just say that I could tell you that it was a situation I was in that I had never been in before, and it was, some people may, it was like a burning bush moment for me where I could see, hey, you need to do this. I had to get some help, and getting that help led me to reconnect with God, and that's based off of my tutelage of God. I was like, yeah, that sounds like about right. That sounds like what he would do, So.
Did you grow up religious, or did you recently find that for yourself?
I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
I grew up in the Catholic Church. So I wouldn't say true, really religious, but I did go through the Catholic Church from from kindergarten to 12th grade. And I left the Catholic Church when I got to college, and I started doing just more spiritual things. Being in the South, being African American, most likely you're probably going to go to a Baptist church, at least it's within the Christian faith. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much that.
Got you. Do you still attend church regularly?
That's a good question. Define attend. No, I have not. I've only been back physically to my church here in Charlotte twice, but I do participate online, which, because of the pandemic, and there is something to say to be in physical church and versus being on, watching it from online, but I'm still connected. So.
Before the pandemic, did you go to church in person? Or
Yes.
Do you think forcing it online, did you like that experience, or did you feel like it was, what was the effect of going online for church for you?
Not much, because I was kind of, we had the technology prior, so sometimes I would already, if I was lazy and didn't want to drive, if I didn't want to do it. But I think the biggest thing, like I said, I was physically going to church before the pandemic. My spirit wasn't there, though. And that made the difference. Going through what I had to go through during the pandemic, my spirit, like I say, even if I go now, my spirit is there where my spirit wasn't there, and again, that's the big difference of reconnecting spiritually with my what I would say higher power.
That's really inspirational.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What do you think your future looks like?
Oh, I have no clue. I don't even want to guess. Whatever God wants. That's what my future is. Whatever God wants. Whatever His will is, to be quite honest with you. Whatever God's will is, that's what my future is. And I don't try to think about it too much. I really, again, one of the things the lessons that I learned from the pandemic was stay in the moment, do what I need to do today, past is in the past is in the past, and the future, you know, I can't do anything about certain things, and just to control what I can control, and knowing that difference of what I can and what I cannot control, and let the future take care of itself.
Are there any additional things you'd want to say about your experiences, or just something you want to tell people?
Again, the big takeaway for me was, do self-reflections every day if you can, to know a little bit more about yourself, and what you desire is something that I still have to do. I had to take into account every day of, do I need to apologize to somebody? Did I do something correctly or incorrectly? What things I need to change every day? Self-reflection every day. If someone has a substance abuse problem, you try to get help, but nobody can force it on you. You have to seek it for yourself. Mm-hmm. So if you think or feel that you may have a problem, the inkling of a problem, go find out if you do, through various programs that are out there to help.
Do you feel like going through your substance abuse and that journey, do you think you would be more inclined to help others?
I have to help others, yeah.
Have you before?
I have. And I still do. That's the price, is to help others as much as I can, when I can, and that's the goal. I hope to continue doing every day throughout the rest of my life, is to help those and help, hopefully, just keep passing it on.
Do you think that pairs well with teaching, like the lessons you can help others with substance abuse, like in turn? Yes, because it allows me to. It just gives me a different lens than I had before. What do you mean? You take a different viewpoint of relationships, and the best teachers, build and maintain relationships with their students, or a good rapport, positive rapport. And if you can, if you learn things about yourself through substance abuse, you get that empathy of what they're going through. It's just a different lens. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a different lens. No, I think I understand what you're saying. Do you have an example, perhaps, I could help better explain?
I would say maybe, and this is not for everybody, this is just, again, lessons that I learned how to do. If I'm probably if a student is doing something, or heck, anybody is doing something that affects me, and if I can slow it down a moment or two, and I have to look inward and say, what is this person doing affecting me? Is it affecting my self-esteem? Is it affecting my ego? What part of self is being affected? And how am I playing a role in this? Because for every action, there's a reaction. So if the student may be coming at me, or if they're, in an aggressive manner or tone or something like that, or maybe I didn't do anything wrong, but maybe it's something I can say, hey, what is it? Being tolerant and compassionate with that student. Hey, what's wrong? What's going on? How can I help? but at the same time, again, doing the self-reflection, what did I do to set this in motion? Did I say something? Did I do something? And sometimes you may find out it might have been one little thing that could have set it off. And then you may have to apologize and make some type of amends to it as much as possible. So.
Sounds like a role is really important to you, like, or just like having a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like the pandemic enlightened that purpose, or like how do you think like just moving forward, how is that going to change for you?
I guess going through that time period, it did make me be able to articulate some things that are important. Values. What values are more important to me than others? It was one thing to know it, and then there's another thing to be able to articulate it better to yourself and to others. And that was one of the things that kind of came out. I was able to articulate my values and some of the things that, so like Rose, as you was asking, is kind of dependent on, those values. Sense of purpose, and having that purpose drives me based off on those values. So I value relationships. I value, I guess the health of the relationship, and do we have a common goal and common vision or a purpose to do, what we're working with, and if they're at odds, there's complications. So I try to find those, that sense of purpose in the role.
And yeah, again, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I got my sanity back. I got the sanity back. That was good.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.